And all right, so today's, welcome to our multifamily meetup. And today's session, we have Sarah Hoverson talking to us about how to best utilize your utilities, especially right now during COVID and how that's going to work. But as you know, we always are going to be talking about any off-market properties or things coming up. We have our director of our commercial division at the collective, Will Tiao here, who's going to give us his take on what's going on in the market. And then we'll get to our guest speaker for today. As you know, thanks for watching us today, but we have a full channel on our YouTube page, and it's thecollectiverealty.com. We have many webinars up there and lots of information for you to take a look at. We also just updated the Collective Realty's website page, it's thecollectiverealty.com, and we have quite a few videos and resources there as well, a special section just for multifamily. Our next educational event that we're doing at the Collective is a homebuyer seminar, and that's going to be Thursday, February 4th at 4:30. So you're all welcome to join. The RSVP link for that is lahomebuyerSeminar.com. I'll post it in the chat, but it's lahomebuyerSeminar.com. It's going to be about an hour to an hour and a half session talking about what it's like in today's market to purchase a home. We'll talk about some of the upcoming areas, about different down payment options. A lot of people don't know you can buy with 0% down or 3.5% down. You don't always need 20% down. You don't have to have perfect credit either. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about, what the situation is in the residential market as far as multiple offers and how to get offers accepted and so on. So it's going to be a great session for anyone who's, curious on getting on that path to becoming a homeowner for the first time, or maybe buying a second property. We'll really make sure that we're giving you the latest information. We have a couple great lenders who will be part of that call as well. So join us on February 4th at 4:30 for our LA Homebuyer Seminar. And now I'm going to turn it over to Will Tiao, our commercial director.
Thanks, Anthony. Good to see everyone. Happy New Year. Well, let's talk about what just happened, which was maybe the craziest year in multifamily in quite a while. That year, of course, was 2020. I think, I got a lot of calls throughout the year asking, how's the market doing? And it was very interesting. I just got off the phone right before this seminar with a lender who specializes in commercial lending. He does office, he does retail, mixed use, and multifamily. And he said that out of all of those, industrial as well, and out of all of those sectors, multifamily is still the strongest sector when it comes to financing. And the reason being that at the end of the day, when people can only afford like the basics, for most people, the basics is food and rent. So if they can, people try to, people try to pay their rent when they can. Now, that's being said, we all know, especially if you own multifamily in Los Angeles, or frankly, in LA County or anywhere in the state of California, right now, there is an eviction moratorium. That moratorium, specifically since, we have a property management company, Tiao Properties, we manage hundreds of units. And the one thing is that, if a tenant has been affected by COVID, not just, obviously if they're sick from it, or their industry has been affected by it, like say they worked in a restaurant or a hotel or a hair salon, they could claim that they've been affected by COVID and can basically not pay rent. And in the city of Los Angeles, that would mean that you as a landlord would not be able to collect on that rent up to, say, a year after the end of the emergency declaration, which hasn't had an end date yet. So at this point, it's ongoing. So because of that eviction moratorium, there is this uncertainty in the market. Beyond that, a lot of people have started to leave. We've noticed rents starting to fall. Those rents, a lot depends on the type of market you're in. If you have A-class properties, say luxury multifamily, that's a tough market because that's been overbuilt. If you're in B-class or C-class properties, B-class, I would say, has definitely gone down anywhere from 10 to 20%. C-class, not much. I have these like $1,100, $1,200 studios in Boyle Heights. We have maybe lowered our rents by like $50, if that, and they're still renting, because at the end of the day, a lot of C-class units still are pretty competitively priced, and there's still a dearth of affordable housing in Los Angeles. So it's something to think about as you're looking at getting into multifamily, because obviously with the decrease in rents, there has been a slight dip in the multifamily market. So a lot of people are starting to think this may be a buying opportunity, because low interest rates as well as rents are starting to dip. Therefore, people who want to get out of multifamily, which I do have a number of clients who are looking to sell, and they're thinking about, maybe reinvesting out of state or whatnot. These are opportunities potentially to get into the market at how shall we say, more reasonable or affordable price. So it's something to consider. Now, a couple housekeeping items. At the bottom of your screen, there's two tabs. There's a chat tab and a Q&A tab. So the chat tab, let's keep that for if any of you have wants or needs or have off-market deals that you'd like to talk about, please put those on there. Or if you have any wants or needs, if there's someone here that might be interested, please, feel free to throw. And the Q&A tab, let's keep that for our speaker, who I'll be introducing here very shortly. But before we get to her, let's talk about our off-market deals. So for those of you who have been attending our previous seminars, that we did a series last year on tenants in common. For those of you who have not been a part of that series, tenants in common is when basically you have multiple owners buying a single property. In this case, they're multifamily properties, formerly apartments, that are now being sold as individual units, almost like they're like a condo, except that you're holding title together. So I have a project in West Hollywood as we speak. It is coming on the market either later this week or early next. And I wanted to take you guys through this property so you guys can see a little bit what we've done. Let's see here. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Second.
While Will is sharing his screen, I just also wanted to mention that when he's talking about affordability in houses, we have the affordability index for Los Angeles is more affordable now than it's been in the last 6 years. And you might think, how is that possible? It's all because of rates, because rates have come down so much. That's why we haven't seen a big drop in prices, but it's because of rates. So just wanted to throw that out there.
So this is the Hayworth. It is an 8-unit property in the city of West Hollywood. They're all 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath unit townhomes. So 2 stories. So these used to be rentals, and we've now converted it into a tenant in common property. So what does that mean? It means that there's 8 units. That means there'll be 8 different owners. Okay. And these 8 different owners will have the right to their individual unit. Now, because of that, there's only 2 lenders that will allow people to lend on what this is, a fractional interest. And so those lenders are Sterling Bank and National Cooperative Bank. And we had Sterling Bank speak last fall. And this TIC that you're seeing right here is priced at $735,000. This is the building on the outside. Has a private yard, private courtyard, as you can see here. And what's interesting about that is that, you know, if you're trying to find a 2-story townhouse, 2-bedroom, 2-bath with all these amenities in the city of West Hollywood, for those of you who are in the market and know, you're talking at least 900 to $1 million, right? Am I right, Anthony? Like, I think you're in that range.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So for something like this, it would typically be in the 900 to $1 million range, but we are listing these at 735. Why? Because it's a TIC, because there's a lack of, at this point, not a lot of lenders who will do that. So the downside is you don't technically own your unit, you own a fraction of the whole property, but the upside is you can live like in a $900 to $1 million, property without, without having to pay that price. So we're seeing a lot of owners starting to consider this as a possibility of getting out of the multifamily market, out of the landlord game, out of the management, and being able to sell individual units. So that's one potential way that I'm seeing people sell their units. The other is people are still clamoring for what I would call kind of fixer properties. For example, I have another off-market property that's going to be coming to market at the end of the month. It's a triplex in Los Feliz. And so I always like to do this, just so you guys can run numbers. You guys understand like how to do an analysis of like the types of numbers. So if you have pen and paper, this is what I write down. It's 3 units. There's a duplex in the front and a single in the back. The duplex has 2 3-bedroom, 2-bath units. Okay. They're rather large. They're like 850, 900 square feet each. Okay. They both come with 2 parking spaces. Those two units will be delivered vacant. Okay. There's a single, like a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, basically guest house in the back, okay, of the property. So they share a yard, and each unit has 2 parking spaces. So, question for the group. If you have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in Los Feliz with 2 parking spaces, anybody have any guess on how much rent that would get a month?
5,000.
5,000. I hear 5,000. Any others? You can put in the chat. Any guesses? I know there's some property managers on here. I see you, Mary Allen. I see I see people on here.
Someone said 3,500.
Somebody said 3,500. I think that's a good guess. I would put it at 3,500. Okay. So you have 2 units at 3,500, and that's assuming that's been redone, right? We're talking, it's been remodeled, it's got washer dryer, it's got all those things. Okay. So 3,500 each. Okay. Times 2, that's 7K, right? Then you have a 1-bedroom, 1-bath in the back guest house. How much does that go for? Anybody? It's got parking. Going once? 17, somebody says 1,750. Anyone else?
2,500.
I'm sorry?
2,500.
2,500. Okay, we have 1,750, we have 2,500. Going once, going twice. I'm going to split the difference. Okay, let's say it's like 2,150. Okay, so we're at 2,150 plus 7,000. So what are we at? 9,150. Am I correct? So 9,150, that's your monthly. Let's multiply that by 12. That's your yearly. You're at 109,800, right? So we are planning to price this at $1,325,000. Okay, so at $1,325,000.
That's really good. Yeah, that's a really good price.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? What's your GRM? What's your gross rent multiplier, guys? Anybody? It's a 12. Can you buy a 12 GRM in Los Feliz? Not really. Right? You want to get a property in Los Feliz with a triplex like that, you're going to have to do a 14 or 15 GRM. So that's what you could do. The other thing you could consider is what we just talked about. You could TIC this property, right? So what does that mean? What does that mean? So how much would a 3-bedroom, 2-bath condo go for in Los Feliz? Anybody?
900.
900. I hear 900. Anybody else? I'm going to be a little conservative here because it's a TIC, right? It's not a full-fledged condo, right? I'm going to say, let's say 650. Okay. So your front 2 units, 2 3-bedroom, 2 baths could each go for 650. That gets you right there to 1.3 million. What would a 1-bedroom, 1-bath go for? That's your profit right there. Let's say it's 450,000. Now you're at 1.7, 1.75 million. You've made your profit. Okay. So that's when I'm running these. This is how we run numbers. We look at what it currently is running for and what we think it will run for, what we call a pro forma number. We run our gross rent multipliers, we run our cap rates, and we see, is this a deal that makes sense? It does. Maybe we consider buying it. And if not, then they need to come down on price. All right. So if any of you have any other questions or thoughts or have, like I said, other deals or needs or wants, let us know. Please put it in the chat. And in the meantime, let me introduce our speaker. I really love it when we can introduce speakers that we actually use as our vendors. And in this case, we do. As I mentioned, we have a property management company. We manage several hundred units. Sarah Hoverson of Livable is our primary vendor when it comes to ratio utility billing services. I will let Sarah explain what that means. But it has definitely changed the game for our owners when it comes to lowering their utility costs, which is critical when most people are staying at home. And it has increased cap rates because it's lowered their costs and allowed people to keep their income stream coming in. So Sarah, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much. And yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Happy that we have quite a few people that made some time to listen in this evening. I myself am in San Diego, so not as familiar with rates in Los Angeles, although I am constantly talking to property owners across the state. And as you'll learn, we're now in about 12 other states. This presentation is going to be kind of twofold. So the first part, I'm going to talk about utility trends kind of in general, how things are being affected due to COVID and stay-at-home, shelter-in-place orders. Who knows how much longer we're going to be in this boat? Hopefully not that much longer, but I know property owners are already feeling, the increase in expenses and costs. So that's going to be the first part. I also want to talk about our services and the different ways that we can help you. I also love when I can talk to or be a part of presentations where we actually work with the host. So glad that we have your kind of blessing and you've had a good experience and your tenants have as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I'm gonna minimize this. Okay. All right, so utility management, what you need to know during COVID-19. Um, so First off, let me just start with a little bit before we get into it, just a little bit about Livable. So we are a software company. We have been in business since 2009, and we were founded in San Francisco by a property owner, someone that has about a couple thousand doors in the city, who really needed a solution for his own property, right? So he knew that there were kind of runaway costs with utilities without accountability from tenants. So really wanted a solution for his own portfolio. Over the years, we expanded across California, and one of the ways that we do that is through apartment association partnerships that we have. So if you guys are in Los Angeles, it's likely that you are a member of AGLA or possibly AOA. So we have partnerships with them. I'm doing a lot of presentations online now through those associations. Normally would also be doing things in person as well as trade shows and stuff, but it's actually kind of cool that we're able to reach a broader audience this way. But yeah, we've expanded across California, and as I mentioned, into 12 other states now. We have a lot of owners and clients that are purchasing properties outside of California as well, more and more. And then of course, just people are always looking, for solutions to increase their NOI and promote accountability from their tenants. So it's been kind of a natural expansion. And now we are really kind of, after AB 1482 passed last year, and the statewide rent control was put into place. Obviously the regulatory environment here in California can be pretty challenging, so we are making a more concerted effort to expand. But we are a California company, and we have lots of experience working in really tough rent control markets like San Francisco and Los Angeles, and do consider ourselves to be kind of rent control experts. So that's a little bit about Livable. I'm the account executive here. I've been with the company for over 2 years. And if you want to get in touch, I'll definitely, be sharing my contact information, but you'll be speaking directly with me. Happy to book time to chat. And also, of course, if you have any questions during the presentation, you can put them in the chat box. I can't see them right now, but I will at the end. So COVID-19 and shelter-in-place orders. So obviously landlord utility costs are going to be rising with everyone working from home. Normally people were out of their apartments for 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day. Now they're at home. So that means increase in all utilities and all expenses. We don't know what either restrictions are coming or really what assistance is coming. Hopefully, after the 20th of this month, there might be a little more in terms of, rental assistance or a clearer path out of this mess, but who's to say? So we really encourage everyone to be kind of looking into what their options are. So, as a utility aggregator or billing provider, we really have an opportunity to communicate with our clients' tenants and to provide, compassionate communication, but also conservation tips and education to residents. So education is super important. One of my favorite statistics here is that the EPA actually did a study that showed that providing tenants with information on their water consumption and not even charging them reduced water use by 15% on average, which is, a substantial savings to you as an owner without actually having to increase expenses for your tenants. So with that, with that knowledge, and with the fact that a lot of clients at the beginning of COVID were very, weary or hesitant about either introducing new expenses to client or to their tenants, or just, basically couldn't because of rent control situations, we have this monitoring initiative, which I will speak to in a moment. But really, I love that fact. It's really just speaks that to the fact that most tenants really have no idea how much water they use, what water costs, right? As you know, all utility expenses will continue to rise in perpetuity. There's rarely ever a decrease on your service, rates. So we really want to promote accountability to tenants, and we can do that through educational tools. Also, by passing costs through to tenants, it really does change their usage habits, right? So they report leaks faster if they know that that's going to show up on their bill. They also keep us updated and you updated on occupancy counts, because that's how charges are determined. And again, the conservation corner, where we have the opportunity to, communicate with residents on ways to make smarter kind of usage choices. So bigger trends, again, utilities are rising with no end in sight. Americans this year will pay an average of $104 per month in water, and that's up more than 30% in less than a decade. In a study of the country's 50 largest metro areas, water and sewer bills are rising faster than inflation. So I know in the city of Los Angeles, you guys have a pretty, restrictive, amount that you can raise your rent on a yearly basis. And that is tied to the, cost of living and inflation. So you need to account for the fact that these rates are rising faster than the amount that you can really increase rents. So if you're including utilities with your rent, there's there's definitely an opportunity to kind of switch that around and pass through those charges, so you get ahead of that. You have other operating expenses beyond utilities, so you don't want to be short-sighted and essentially be subsidizing your tenants' utilities because they're included with the rent. Same thing for electricity. This is just a chart that shows 10 years and how utility costs have spiked, increased nationally around 15%, and that's just the rates. Recycling, I know you guys have some fun recycling rules in Los Angeles as well. Unfortunately, recycling is not making as much money for these companies as it used to, because China stopped buying a lot of the recycling. So in order for them to make money, they're increasing service costs to their users, their clients, their customers. And also, imposing fines and fees. So again, we're really aiming towards promoting accountability to tenants. We want them to be properly sorting. We don't want them to be, leaving out things that they shouldn't leave out, bulk items, things like that. So, this is another way to kind of incentivize tenants to just, make smarter choices. In terms of legislation, in California, this was a shocking statistic to me whenever I saw it, but 80% of tenants, in multifamily housing don't pay for water. That was a fact a few years ago, and that actually prompted the Senate to pass SB 7. That was passed in 2017, and it basically requires that all new multifamily housing built after January 1 of 2018 has to have sub-meters. So those are individual meters to measure the water in each unit, and tenants must pay for their water. So that is the direction that the state is going. Over time, the idea is that all tenants will be paying for their water, and it's not going to be included anymore. Tenants are already paying for their electricity and for their gas in most cases, and there's just really no reason that they shouldn't be paying for water and that should be your responsibility. So, California was in a drought state for 3 years. I know that's also kind of cyclical. So as, we potentially approach that again, rates go up. It's just more important than ever to promote conservation and to have tenants, being aware of their usage. So best way to do that is to have them be financially responsible. Other states like Texas, which is where I'm from, have regulations for submetering and for REBS, which is the allocation method that I'll get to in a moment. So we really hope that California is also going to eventually get to that place. Right now, it's kind of like the Wild West out here in terms of like REBS and submetering, and each, city might have its own rules around it or restrictions. Thankfully, it is legal across all of California, with the exception of San Jose, which does not allow for the REBS method. But other places, Los Angeles, even places like West Hollywood and Santa Monica, it's a little restrictive, but it's still possible. So I'll get to that. Obviously, rent control is already here. And more owners are finding ways to increase their other income. Ways that, you're probably familiar with are things like pet rent, charging for parking, charging for storage, and also utility expenses. So this came from a Forbes article back in April, and it was talking about the importance of other income. And they gave a great example here. So let's say that you have a building that's valued at a 7% cap rate. And if you are able to add $50,000 more in additional other income, you're looking at a more than $700,000 value add to your property. So it's really important, again, to just be kind of identifying and thinking about ways that you can increase this other income at your property that's not just on your base rent. As Will was talking about, we're seeing rates go down in places like San Francisco and Los Angeles. Your kind of market rent is dipping it slightly. It's actually a great opportunity for you to lower a unit slightly and then add on things like this, because when people are doing searches in places like Zillow, they might be setting their cap at something, $1,750. And so you want to be kind of catching their eye with potentially a lower base rate and then have these additional charges kind of on top. So what are your options for billing your tenants back for water? One option is submeters. So as I mentioned, submeters are when you actually install an individual meter on each unit's water line that can measure the amount of water that is coming in and the amount of wastewater that is going out. There's pros and cons to this. So it is the most accurate way to measure because we can actually tell, how much is each unit using. However, it can be very cost prohibitive. So I've heard from my clients and from other people that we've worked with, anywhere from $500 to $1,000 to even more. I mean, 1,200 plus. It really depends on so many things. How old is your building? Your pipes might not even support submeters. What type of meters are you going to get? Nowadays, they offer smart meters. So no one has to physically go and take a picture of the meters each month. There's the cost of installation, maintenance, as well as the approval process through the weights and measures department. I'm working with someone now who has been waiting for 6 months. Her meters have been sitting at weights and measures and, just sitting there. So there's, kind of pros and cons to submeters. If your property has submeters, or if you do choose to install them, you will need a company to perform the billing aspect or the billing function, and Livable can help with that. So we can get that, the submeter data. We reconcile it to your water bill, and then we can bill the tenants for their full portion of that bill, including other things, right? So I know that we're just talking about water here, but other things that we bill back for, things like trash, in some cases, common area, gas and electric, as well as things like landscaping or gardening costs. Pest control is something that we bill back for pretty frequently. And those, obviously, those other items would not be covered under sub-meters. That would just be for water. So for the other items, we use an allocation formula. And the allocation formula basically divides either using an occupancy factor, so how many people are living in each unit, as well as a square footage formula for things like in-unit heating or lighting, and potentially also just split evenly if it's a kind of a common service, for example, internet. You might just want to split that evenly, across the building. So we kind of do an analysis on your property, kind of see what expenses you're paying for and help identify the best way to be kind of the fairest and the most accurate way to split up the charges to the tenant. So ratio utility billing is what RUB stands for. So ratio utility billing system. Pros and cons: very minimal upfront cost, right? Because there is no hardware to purchase or install. You can be billing within a month. You have someone move in, you provide them with a livable utility addendum, and next thing you know, they're being charged for their water, the next month or as soon as we get that water bill. So it's kind of a turnkey solution. We can recover up to 90% of your utility costs. So we do need to acknowledge the fact that it is an estimation. We don't want to run the risk of overcharging anybody. So the owner does share a little bit of the responsibility, kind of have a buffer zone baked in there. But the benefit of that is that, of course, the usage typically goes down overall. So even if you're still sharing in the cost, your portion will hopefully go down as well. We don't have any unit minimums at Livable. So if you have a duplex, if you have an ADU, anything and everything, we can help. We can even do single family. We can aggregate bills and provide one place for tenants to log in, pay all of their utilities and not have to set up their own accounts. So no unit minimums, more effective definitely than flat rate billing. I hope that you understand that by now. Again, with flat rate billing, tenants have no incentive to use less. So they can, take hour-long showers, leave the doors open and the AC on, all sorts of things. They're not incentivized to use less because they're not paying for it. It's recommended by the National Apartment Association as well as the EPA to reduce usage. It is less precise than true submetering, which is why we have the deductions baked in, and it does rely on community efforts. So, we understand that not all tenants are going to, going to be as mindful as we'd hope or as others. And so, we do have tenant support to address those types of questions, but essentially it comes down to, we point to the fact that the owner does share in some of that cost to account for those sorts of things, right? Wasteful tenants, unreported leaks, someone has a guest for a couple weeks, someone goes on vacation for a couple weeks, right? We know those things happen on a monthly basis. There's no way for us to track that. So we just bake in those deductions. RUBS and NOI. So what's the financial impact of converting to tenant paid utilities? Here's a good example for you. I always benefit from seeing things spelled out like this. So let's assume that you have a 150 unit complex and that your monthly water bill is $6,300. If you can transition 80% of this bill back to tenants, you'll realize a monthly savings of $5,040 and a yearly savings of $60,000. So it's real money that you can be putting back into your pocket. So here's just a little breakdown of the allocation formula that we use. Again, here's kind of a list of things that we typically bill back for. So first person, it's a factor of 1. The next person in the building is going to use actually about 60% more water. And then each additional person is going to be a factor of 30% more. So, 4 people living in a unit next door to someone that has 1 unit, they're actually not using 4 times as much water because there is shared consumption and use, right? Like they might be doing laundry together, washing dishes, things like that. So this is an industry standard. This is not something that Livable came up with, but it's really cool because we have had customers that have started with our RUBS program and have installed sub-meters over time, and we can actually look side by side at the charges or the consumption, and it is pretty darn close. So this formula is based off of years of historical data that show this is pretty accurate. For in-unit gas or electricity, again, like for either interior lighting or heating, we would use a square footage method because that would inform us of the size of the area that's being heated or lit. I do want to point out, because we do get a lot of inquiries for people that want to bill back for gas. I know that's a common owner paid expense. There is a restriction from the California Public Utilities Commission about billing back for gas or electric if it goes to what they consider vented appliances like laundry dryers or stoves. So unfortunately, if you have one gas line and you have any laundry on the property, like a shared laundry, or it goes into their units for their stoves, we can't legally bill back for that, and neither can you. The ordinance says that it has to be included in the rent. But again, that's why I said, feel free to contact me, and, we'll provide that kind of analysis on your property and see kind of what is legal and what is not legal to bill back for. So kind of this is how it works on our end. These are our billing methods. So we, can download the bill directly from your utility provider. We allocate the charges, and there's a couple of ways that the tenants can receive a statement. So either they'll receive it from Livable and they'll log into our online platform, they can make a payment, and then we reimburse you. So we bill in arrears. Other option works best if you use a property management software like Yardi or Appfolio. We can generate the charges and provide them to you that can be posted directly to the tenant's ledger, and then the tenants can pay you at the same time that they're paying rent. Pros and cons of each. So some people, especially in rent control, prefer to keep the two completely separate, kind of visually from the tenant's perspective, even though Los Angeles does require that utilities are considered a part of the base rent, even if it's billed separately through a third party like Livable. It actually is considered part of your base rent, which really works to your advantage in a couple of ways, because if a tenant skips out on their utility bill and they're not paying, they're in violation of their lease, and it's as if they haven't paid their rent. I know we're not doing evictions right now, but eventually down the road when we are again, that could be a tool for you. Also, that figure gets baked into your base rent. So whenever you are doing your rental increase the next year, you would have set a utility allowance basically, and you get to do your increase on that figure as well. So your base rent is actually kind of inflated, even though they're only paying, their $2,000 a month for base rent, and then the fluctuating utility costs based on their usage or the building's usage. But anyways, that's kind of to say some people like to keep the two kind of visually separate. They want it to be like the tenant is paying they're the owner or the property management company for their rent, they're receiving a bill from us for their utilities. The benefit to having the tenants pay you directly is that it's, one payment that the tenant has to make a month. They just log into one place, make a payment for both items. It's also a faster cash flow back to you, as opposed to waiting an additional billing cycle for Livable to collect the payment from the tenants. So it's really up to you. That might vary based on your building. You might want this building would work better for the tenants to do it this way. This building would work better for the tenants to do it the other way. So again, we're very flexible, and nothing's cookie cutter. So we can kind of, again, determine what would work best for you and for your tenants. And I mentioned earlier, I think we do have a tenant support team. So, if tenants have any questions, oh, here it is. Livable handles all tenant support. So kind of this is what the setup process would look like. You enroll your buildings, send a 30-day notice, and that would be, for tenants that are under statewide rent control, not LA City, or provide our lease addendum to new tenants. So for anyone that is under LA rent control or like West Hollywood, Santa Monica, can only start the program with a new lease. It needs to be a new tenant and a new lease. So, we're used to the fact that it might be one tenant at a time. Eventually, the entire property will be on the program. And so, you want to have the foresight to plan for that. You don't want to be paying for your tenants' utilities in 10 years' time. So if you guys are in this, for the long haul, it's definitely something that you need to be doing now. Even if you're not turning it on now, that's fine, especially during COVID. The first few months of COVID, we did have a lot of clients that were, including this language in their lease, but we're saying, hey, we're going to hold off, a few months, see what happens. We can always, lower the amount that we're passing through to the tenants, but you just really don't want to lose the opportunity to do that, because if you do have someone that stays long-term, you can't make any changes to their lease during their tenancy. You can't increase their expenses. So, it's kind of, you have one shot to do this, and that's with turnover. But with tenants that are under either LA County or the statewide rent control, you still do have an opportunity to do that with a 30-day notice. You can also set a cap if you want. It's not required. That would be kind of the more conservative approach if you want to be sure that you're not going above the allowable increase amount. However, the bill text, AB 1482, actually does not say anything one way or the other about utilities being considered a part of rent or not, the way that LA clearly does define that. So lots of options. Again, happy to chat with anybody about that. So you provide online access to your DWP account, so our team can go in and download the bill directly every month or every other month. Also for your other utilities, if we're billing back. We allocate the bills or get the sub-meter data, and we can either send the tenants a statement or put that to the tenant's ledger in your PM software. And then either tenants pay us or they pay you. We also have an online portal, which is very important for showing tenants the allocation table. So we show, the original bill amount. We show how it was broken down. That is a very important piece from a compliance standpoint. So sometimes, I'll talk to people who say that they've been doing this themselves in an Excel spreadsheet or on their calculator. That's a little risky. So you run the risk of overcharging tenants, which is illegal. You could be undercharging tenants and leaving money on the table. And again, it's really important that you're able to show your work. So we post all that information on our website, on the tenant portal, and it's accessible to them forever. So if someone had a question about what their bill was in April of 2018, they can go reference it. And the best part is that regardless of the collection method, we offer all tenant support. So, and that includes like bilingual support. we really don't want to create any extra work for you or your team. So we kind of try to do all the heavy lifting on our end in terms of, setting up your properties, as well as, again, answering any questions that tenants might have about their bill or about the program. Benchmarking and analytics is another kind of ancillary service that we offer. For commercial, mixed use, and multifamily buildings that are larger than 50,000 square feet, it's required that you report benchmarking metrics. So we have a system that can track all of the usage data across your buildings, across your portfolio, and do that reporting for you. So there's, Energy Star reporting that's required for those. That information has to be reported to the federal government. It's also really a cool thing to have, so you can see how your properties compare to other properties in your area. It could help to identify inefficiencies at your property. So, you could see that you're spending, X amount, and all the properties around you are spending 10% lower. Well, there's something going on there. You could also see, just comparatively to other buildings in your portfolio, how buildings are performing. Owners who actively benchmark and prioritize energy and water efficiency see a savings of 4.3% or better, going up to 8% over 2 years and 10% at 3 years. So again, if you want to be looking at these things for the long-term benefit to you, and there really are a lot of different ways that you can, make your properties more profitable. It's also estimated that 80% of bills contain errors or anomalies. So this can really help, again, to kind of track those sorts of things, alert you if there's spikes and things like that. There could be an undetected leak, or again, like inefficiencies, faulty meters. You could be charged because a meter's gone wacky and you don't know it. So kind of an extra set of eyes, if you will, on all your properties and your bills. So as an kind of recap of the ways that Livable can help you. So our ratio utility billing service, sub-meter billing, benchmarking, the monitoring service. So this is what I had mentioned at the beginning. This is something that was born out of, the necessity of COVID, and really, again, wanting to not charge tenants anything. This is an excellent option for rent control tenants, where you want to provide them with this information. You want to tell them, like, this is how much you would be paying if you were paying for your water. That it makes a difference. It moves the needle. People will, they care about that. And I do think, honestly, that, California as a whole, and renters in California and Los Angeles do care about the environment as a whole. And so, like, they want to do good for the planet. And so just providing them that information is free for them. It's very low cost for you. We only charge $1 per unit to do that. So again, it's kind of just helping to promote accountability and that educational piece for tenants that either you don't want to start billing yet, or you can't bill because they're in a lease and they're under rent control. So that's an option, monitoring. We do have free recovery estimates that we can do for you. So we can provide an analysis of your bills and let you know, how much you could expect to recover, and also how much tenants can expect to pay. So if you have a property listed that says, tenant responsible for all utilities, they're probably going to ask, well, how much can that be? They want to know for budgeting purposes. And so we have this amazing calculator that you can use. Anyone can use this. I'll put this link in the chat, but you can actually access this outside of the PM portal. You can just go to our website. It's livable.com/calculator. You can enter in some previous utility bills, and then the the occupancy counts, and it'll do the, the estimates for you. We're also happy to do that. So if you can send that information to me and our team, we can provide a more detailed analysis for you, because we'll ask about things like the common areas. Is there a swimming pool? Is there shared laundry? Do they have in-unit dishwashers? All of those things have weights assigned to it. So this calculator is a great kind of resource for you if you just want to mess around, play with it, give it kind of a baseline. But for a more detailed analysis, like, please, again, get in touch with us, and we can help with that. And yeah, you can welcome to email comesave@livable.com. That'll come to me. I'll get back to you. Our website is livable.com. So please feel free to go visit our website, follow us on all the socials. And yeah, so let me exit here, stop sharing, and then I'll be able to see if we have any questions or chats.
So, Sarah, as a client, there were certain questions we had at the beginning that I think a lot of people would want to know.
Sure.
So I think obviously first question is, how do you guys charge?
Right. Okay, great. So, so we have, it's twofold. We have a tiered pricing structure based on the number of units in the portfolio. So it ranges from $5 to $10. If you're in the 1 to 50 unit,
$5 to $10 per unit, correct?
per unit,
Mm-hmm.
per unit per month, but just for the actively enrolled units. Okay. So if you only had one come on, and we only charge for the one. And then it also depends on the collection method. So if we're providing the charges to you to collect through your PM software, it's what we call convergent billing. That's $5 per unit. So basically it ranges from $5 to $10. All or part of that cost can be passed through to the tenant. So a lot of owners choose to have the tenant pay, some don't, some want to split the cost. So kind of a sliding scale on that.
Okay. And what kind of pushback do you see? Do you get pushback from tenants with regards to bills and stuff like that? Like what kind of pushback do you see, and how do you guys handle that stuff like that?
Yeah. So I will say that this is definitely becoming more common, just in general, but especially in California, because of the reasons that I mentioned, right? So I think that if a tenant was to see, a place online that says utilities included, they're not included, they're not going to run away from that, right? So just start there. Secondly, we do have tenants that kind of whistle blow on their neighbors, right? They'll say, I know that my neighbor has 5 people living there. They're only being charged for 2 people. So we get, calls and emails to that effect. We always try to verify that with like an on-site property manager or the owner. And if we can do that, then we want to adjust the allocation method, right? But that is the reason that the owner shares in some of the cost, is because we know those things happen. A tenant might call us and say, oh, my neighbor leaves, their water running, they're washing their car every weekend or whatever it is. We say, yes, we know those things happen. That's why we're not passing through 100% of the charges to you. You're not even being charged really like your true usage. So that's kind of the two main things that I think we hear. And I think that we have a good way to kind of explain what we do to overcome that, in the form of, the deductions and having the owner share a little bit. And the deductions, so we have a common area deduction that's set just based on what's going on at the building. Then there's a goodwill deduction, and that can actually be adjusted by the owner. So say we run this analysis and we see that, 1 bedroom might be charged $80 for water, sewer, and trash. And the owner says, I don't want to charge $80. I only want to charge $50. That's fine. We can do that. They still get like all the communication and stuff to help them make better choices, and use less as opposed to like a flat fee. But I'm just saying, like, the owner can always share more of the responsibility if they want, if they think that that's what tenants will, like their tenants would respond better to or react better to. We can always, accommodate and adjust as needed.
So say I have a rent controlled building, and this actually has happened to us with you guys. So we have a rent controlled building. We have longer term tenants who in their lease, it's not required that they pay shared expenses. So can we pass any costs on to them or not? And then if not, what about new tenants that are coming to that same building?
So the answer is new tenants, yes, no problem. For the existing tenants, short answer is no, but there is kind of a loophole through HCID, so Housing Community Investment Department. What they actually allow you to do is to do a corresponding rent decrease and then pass through a utility amount. Now it's going to be fixed. So, you need to provide like the bill information. We determine it's, 100. They actually have a calculator as well that you can use in an Excel spreadsheet. But, you do a rental decrease of $100 and then you pass through utility costs. So that would be an option. That would be your only option for existing rent control tenants. But it is.
Actually, I didn't know that. Actually, that's interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know that until this summer either, and it is very interesting. So yeah,
increase their base rent by $100. You said?
Well, it's based on your actual bills. So you enter in 12 months of your bills into their little spreadsheet, and it'll calculate that for you.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah. And then you would decrease their monthly rent by that amount, and then charge back the utility.
Right.
Very interesting.
Yeah, okay. I'll send that info to you just so you have it.
Yes,
yeah, we have had actually some takers on that. So people are doing that. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Again, they just, all the added benefits of accountability really are worth it. You're getting the same amount, but now you have people that are engaged.
Interesting. Okay. James has a question. How do you put costs of pest control back on the renter? How do they react to it? For some reason, I always looked at something like that as preventative maintenance and something a landlord should do. Thanks.
So, I mean, with pests, I guess there's a lot of different types, right? There's rodents, termites, or bed bugs, and I think they might be treated differently, right? Or not?
Yeah, so we do that. We do basically anything that's like a recurring cost. So if you have quarterly pest control, for example, and that's a bill that you get every month or every 4 months or whatnot, then that's something that we can pass through. If it's like you have a one-off situation where there's a skunk and you need someone to come remove a skunk, no, we're not going to do that. But things that are considered either like services or amenities that are on a recurring cycle, like you have a gardener that's coming every month to do things. Those are costs that could potentially be passed through to tenants as long as it's disclosed either in their initial lease agreement with our lease addendum or, with that notice. So again, that could also be a flat rate, right? Usually if it is recurring, it's a fixed amount every so often or every time they come. So you could choose to pass through only half of the cost or 75% of the cost. Again, it's there's no one size fits all. It's what you think, your tenants will accept, and kind of we can adjust from there.
Yeah, that was something when we started working with you guys, we noticed that there was a lease addendum that you guys created, right? And then we shared and then there was a number. It was something like what's the maximum we could charge them, right? There was
that is exactly what Los Angeles requires that you do. So you have to put that cap in there, but you have the ability to set that as high as you want. We can help kind of inform what that would be based off of your bills. But you get to set that amount that is required by Los Angeles. So we have a separate version of our lease addendum that is specific to Los Angeles.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah. Because I remember when we didn't know how much to put. So we put like really high numbers, and then the tenants were like, wait, I'm going to pay $300 for my, we're like, no, that's the most you could pay.
But the reason that's actually recommended to do is like, what if you have someone that stays there for 20 years? I mean, that could happen in Los Angeles, rent control. You
Yep.
need to have like room to grow into that amount. Like, who
Right.
knows, what's going to happen in 20 years. And you had it capped at $75, and now it's actually, way more than that. So
Sure.
reasons.
Yeah.
And basically what it boils down to is if they don't use $300, then that's like a rent credit to them because they're not paying that full amount. So
Right. Do we have any other questions for Sarah?
is anyone in the house currently paying for utilities at their properties? And does anyone have any vacancies? Because you need to get in touch with me.
Yeah, that is absolutely correct. Yeah.
I mean, thank you, Will, for bringing this topic today because, during COVID, like you said, everybody's staying home. Utilities are being used very differently than they were before COVID. So it's really a time to make sure you're aware of this opportunities to save money and to use the RUB system. So
Yeah. And
thank
again,
you.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. And I really want to kind of reiterate that it's very customizable and flexible. Like, if you don't think your tenants are going to go for $100 a month, it doesn't have to be that. It could be $25. It could be $10. But you don't want to lose the opportunity to do this by having someone move in and you're saying that you're going to pay their utilities for the duration of their lease. We even see people say they have like 20 units and they have one vacancy. They might say, hey, we're not going to start this program until we have like 50% of the building on, or we're only going to pass through a portion because, we know that the entire building is not, under the same, rules that you are. So, I mean, there's definitely ways to approach it in ways that can be, compassionate to tenants and, slow rollouts, like setting a small cap, lots of different ways to actually implement it. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. We just really don't want people to lose the opportunity. And then again, kind of have those runaway utility costs where people are using whatever they want. Like, think of it as being at a buffet, like you're only paying $15, you're going to eat like way more than you need to. So there's really that accountability factor.
I gotta say, whenever my Livable check shows up in my account every month, I'm very happy because
That's right. We pay you.
it means that I can now pay my utility bill.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, if there's no other questions,